Hello, everybody. Welcome to Adobe Live. My name is Flynn, and I'm here with Greta Larkins. Hi, Greta. How are you?
Hi everyone. Yeah, good this morning. I woke up early and everything, so
Yeah.
watch out.
Thanks for waking up with us. Hey, chat. So just to let you know, Greta, if you can't see chat at the moment, they're out of control. So we pick up from the US stream. We had some friends in that chat, and I believe that they have collectively decided to spam us with little Australian animals and everything. So it's very cute. There's lots of koalas and things like that. So I don't know what we're in for today, but chat's in the mood. Um, but it should be lots of fun because we've got this really fun live stream organized, which I'm really excited about. We're going to be doing animated gifs and having a good time, having a chilled out time. So thank you for doing this with us today. This is your first time on Adobe Live.
It is, and I think it's my pleasure. I'll let you know
Tell us at
if
the
that's the
end.
case in 2 hours' time. But no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm really looking forward to it. And yeah, pretty much most of what I do is, for the most part, fairly fun. So I think we should be able to get some good stuff happening in Photoshop and After Effects pretty quickly.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. And yes, hello, chat. Thanks, Andrew, for whatever you've done in the previous stream to get everybody all riled up. But it's lovely to see you there. And that was a great stream before. They had they do a design off, and so that looked like a lot of fun. Which is super cool. So warmed up the crowd for us, which is great. Just before we get started, just going to quickly bring up our schedule. We're halfway through our week, so Thursday is the middle of our week here. So you can see we're animated gifs with Greta at the moment. Also FASHGIF on Instagram, so AKA, you might know her from over there. And once the animal spamming subsides, I'm sure Johanna would be more than happy to share a link to your profile so that everyone can check it out. Uh, and then tomorrow we've got some branding and design with Joy Lee and some more animation with Bill Hope. Now, Bill Hope is also represented by our friends at Jacky Winter. And you'll notice down the bottom, this is in partnership with Jacky Winter. So we've actually teamed up with Jacky Winter Group, who, if you're not from here, Jacky Winter represents some of the most amazing illustrators and animators and artists in the world, especially in Australia and in the US as well. So we're very excited, and that's how we were introduced to Greta, and we've got a whole series of some new faces coming on Adobe Live. So thank you, Jacky Winter, for partnering with us and allowing us to be able to make this today happen. So, without further ado, we want to learn a little bit more about you first, Greta, if that's okay, just before we kind of get stuck into creating some gifs and all sorts of things like that. So I'm going to switch over to your desktop now, and maybe we could bring up
Perfect.
some of your work. Check it out. Great. Oops, that's not it. I'm a professional. There we are. There we are. Great. So we can see
So
your
yeah,
screen
this
now.
is a bit Yeah, this is a bit of my work over on the Jacky Winter website. I'm pretty sure most of the animations that they have on display here I made with just Photoshop. For years, I only worked with Photoshop. And then in the last 2 years, I moved over into After Effects. Part of that was because of how the requests for my work have changed.
Right.
Ever since Instagram introduced videos. Just had a mental blank. What are they called? Ever since Instagram introduced videos, I've started doing a lot more video work, and therefore I have been doing less GIF work. I can still make GIFs, but because of frame rates and all sorts of stuff like that, I tend to be working now with video. You can do a lot more with video. But yeah, so this is some of my work here. And most of these on average will probably be between 4 and 20 frames. So they're pretty simple. Um, and there's some different techniques that I've used to make these. But for the most part, these are all done with Photoshop. That one that you can see with the seahorse over here, I actually randomly filmed that seahorse at a party once. Someone had a pet seahorse.
As
And
you do.
then, a year later, as you do, I got to drop it in and use it as part of an animation. So, yeah, the foundation for what I do is I retouch an image and then I drop back in the components that I want to move and then I move them. That's sort of the basics, and that's what we'll be going through today. So
So
yeah, these all use exactly the same techniques.
yeah, and looking at your work and and FASHGIF, can you tell us where is it an absolute love for fashion? Is that why you've kind of focused in that area? Like where does that come from?
I used to work, I sort of fell into a job where I did trend forecasting and product development for jewelry,
Right.
which is why I have so much jewelry. I love it. I'm still a bit addicted to it. It's a bit confronting. I So when I was doing the trend forecasting, I had to get on top of collections and start to understand trends and how all of that worked.
Mm.
And at roughly the same time, I think I taught myself how to make a GIF. I could already use Photoshop a little bit,
Hmm.
but I think I taught myself how to make a GIF at the expense of a friend, maybe. Do you remember those like old school deal with it GIFs where the sunglasses would come down
Oh
and
yeah,
land on someone's face and it would
like the
say deal with
meme
it?
deal with it, how it kind of comes down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know nothing about memes, even though I try to keep on top of them. But yeah, the meme. So I know a little bit. I wanted to make my own. So I Googled how to make a GIF.
Hmm.
And I had so much fun making it that I decided to just start making them as a hobby. But I find sometimes when you have an idea, it works better as structure
Hmm.
around that idea. So I thought rather than just animate anything, I'll animate fashion because there are sort of 6 seasons a year: pre-fall, resort, fall, spring, and then 2 couture seasons. So I knew that there would be regular new content coming out.
Mm.
And so that's how I came about FashGif. And I originally started off on Tumblr. And you can go
Ah,
back and still see my early animations. Tumblr used to only support 2 frames for
really?
GIF
Oh
files.
wow, I didn't know
Yeah.
that. Okay.
Yeah, it was. And I kind of didn't know that either, if that makes sense. I used to make them and they wouldn't upload and I'd tweak them and then I worked out, okay, 2 frames is the sweet spot.
Right.
Then it went to 4 and now it's kind of infinite. The GIFs themselves aren't infinite. You can't go too crazy with exporting them because they can be 40 megabytes for just an image file.
Right.
That's not appropriate. So I started posting to Tumblr, and Tumblr have a really great community and staff where they support what they call their creators.
Ah.
And so I started to get some support and I got featured on the radar and I got a promotion through them. And then, yeah, so that's sort of where I began. And it was kind of a little bit of a blessing in disguise in a way, being forced to start off small.
Mm.
It means I've been able to sort of gradually develop and improve. And now my skills tend to improve as clients ask for more demanding things.
Right.
So if someone says, hey, can you do this? I think, ugh, yeah, I reckon I can.
I probably
And then
could.
I probably could. And I think a lot of people do that when they use these sort of programs and this kind of work. You do, not with every job, but there are some jobs where you do have to kind of dive a little bit into the deep end. And I've only ever cried on the phone once to a producer where I said, I think I've made a terrible mistake. But actually, I got it done in the end. But yeah, so for the most part, I've been lucky in a sense that I've been able to grow gradually with my clients' needs.
Mm-hmm.
And now the majority of my work, if I jump over my Instagram, I am a shocker with Instagram. I post once in a blue moon. I know I give people all this social media advice and I never take any of it. But now on my Instagram, I make videos. So obviously the amount of frames is somewhat infinite, but as a general rule, I tend to work with files that sit between 4 to 6 seconds,
Right.
so that the viewer quite quickly can see the full loop.
Mm.
Because I think these feel and look a bit more special when the loop happens sooner rather than later. It's a bit more rewarding as you watch it, or at least for me. So yeah.
Awesome. And how long have you been doing this? What's the time frame for this? How long have you been creating GIFs?
2011. So I know everyone's going to be like, oh, you should be a bit more talented by now, Greta. So
I don't think anyone's
8 or
thinking
9,
that.
yeah. I am. 8 or 9 years. So
Cool.
yeah.
And how long have
And
you
I
been
think
with
I was
Jacky Winter being represented? So
say,
working with them.
I say 2 to 3 years, and that's been it's I think anyone out there who also has any form of representation is very nice. And
Yeah.
you can be quite frank with a producer. You can go, oh, like I don't work with 3D animation or 3D motion graphics. So I can go, oh, I don't work in that area. You know, you can speak quite frankly, as opposed to when you're dealing directly with a client, you don't want to sound you know, panicked or talk yourself down or anything like that. So it's definitely a
Cry on the
relief
phone.
being that person. Yeah, the crying on the phone. Man, that was apparently it happens quite a bit, but I do try to hold it together for the most part in a professional environment.
We all do our best. That's for sure. There was a quick question before we get stuck in. Just how many frames
Yeah.
is this particular one that's behind us or above us? The
I
Beyonce.
don't let's see. I have the file on my desktop. So that's 6 seconds long, 6 times 25. So that's going to be 100 something, 150,
Cool. There you go.
150 frames. I work in 25 frames per second. Oh, you guys are making me speak technically. I work in 25 frames per second as a general rule. I think that's the Australian standard. I'm looking at my boyfriend who's a whiz at this sort of stuff. Yep, he says that's the Australian
You got the
standard. I
nod.
think in America, I got the nod of approval. I think the 24 frames per second is more common over in the US, and you see 29 and a bit. Yeah, there's lots of different frame rates. All I know is if you're filming special effects, you're filming at a very high frame rate. So a visual effects person can jump in. But yeah, I don't have to do anything that nitty gritty.
Cool. Awesome. Great. Well, thanks for the questions, guys. For those that might be new to Adobe Live, we take a lot of questions sort of in the middle. So there is a little timer for about 45 minutes from now. We're going to get stuck into it, but feel free to ask questions as we go along. But yeah, let's get stuck into it. So sharing your screen now. Oh yes. Okay. We can see we're in Photoshop and we have a building in the desert.
We are in Photoshop. So I have 3 images, and I'm happy for people watching to choose which image they'd like to see animated. I'll
Okay.
just talk you through what my ideas are for each one. For this one, I want to animate the different floors of this building. So you can see at the top there how one's sort of coming out. I want to play with the idea of them
Right.
shuffling and
Cool.
kind of get a cool, groovy, S-shaped wavy effect happening. For this rug, I want to animate the tail, and we'll bring the tail off the rug. We'll create a shadow, and we'll do some rigging with I'd call them scales, but if there are any vets out there, please feel free to correct me. But yeah, get this sort of crocodile, alligator situation coming off the rug. And then the third one is a bit more the sort of aesthetic that I usually do, but means I'm not locked into doing fashion. I want to play with the tiers of her dress. There are 3, and have them sort of shift down, almost like I call them matryoshka, like a babushka
Like a Russian
doll.
doll. The
Yeah, have them sort
babushka.
of,
It is. Yeah.
yeah, they've got a few. I should know this. My brother-in-law, he's got Russian heritage. They should
Yeah.
go in like that and sort of shuffle down. So that one will be quite silly and fun. And then from there, whichever one we sort of start working on, we'll add even more effects in After Effects and really start to probably push these images past a point where they're looking good and practical, but have a bit of fun and have a play with them.
Yes, awesome. All right, so a bit of chat interaction. So maybe Johanna, you can help us kind of manage this. And are we choosing A, B, or C? So let's say if you guys just let us know in chat which direction you would go down. So you can say A or building, or B is crocodile.
Yeah.
Bonus points if you spell it correctly without googling it, and and maybe the dress or fashion or C or
Fashion.
something like that, and then we'll go down that route. We've got a
Choose
B,
your own
we've got a
adventure.
C. Yeah, this is why having Johanna in chat as our moderator is great, because she can just kind of pick when this begins and finishes, and then we get to be all creative and all sorts of
If
stuff.
it helps, the building will definitely be the quickest one.
Mm-hmm.
This is the sort of medium level, and this is a little bit harder and a little bit fiddly.
Cool. I like the learn together raw aspect of doing this, when we're actually all trying to figure everything out, how to do some crazy stuff at the same time together.
To be honest, I don't know how I'm going to do this one yet, so that'll
Yeah.
be a really fun. That one's going to get me thinking, but these other ones, yeah, I think I'll be able to nut them out.
Nice. And I think so regular watchers of our stream know that I have rosellas that tend to like to land just above my head at about now, and the whole family has arrived right on cue, and so they're here. But actually, I could hear a lot of animals in the background for you as well. I think there was a couple of birds. You get a lot of native birds there.
Yeah, we have some. We're really lucky. We're in an apartment, but we have some trees just right out, some Australian trees right out the front window, so we get some birds. But we're also near a dog park, and I love dogs.
Yes.
We were looking after a dog at the start of the week, so you've got to be careful not to just stare out the window, because really cute breeds will come past and I just start making noises. So I won't look out there too much this morning because it's distracting. But yeah, we get to see a real mix of them. I went out one day and there was a really magnificent, really large Great Dane, but I was with and looking after a dog that just wanted to bark at it, so I didn't get to pat it, which was devastating. I know.
Looks like C is the pick.
I knew you guys would do that to me.
I told you. It's always the way. Every designer knows that if you put 3 up, you're like, okay, this is the one I want you to pick. This is the kind of one they asked for. This is the wild card crazy one. We don't really know how it's going to work out, but let's just put it up, and if they pick it, we'll deal with it. And that's always always the one that we pick, which is great.
Let's get going. So, are you happy for me to jump in, Flynn, and start working?
Yeah. You get started. Yep, absolutely.
Alrighty, let's do this. So I use Photoshop, maybe not in the absolute best way. I'll just close this. Truck is going past. I don't use a lot of masks. So for those of you watching from home, you might see how I do some things and think, oh, I don't do it like that. I don't like to do it like that. It's Photoshop. What I love about Photoshop is there are right answers, but there are also no wrong answers. So whatever you're comfortable with how you approach a task, I think is okay. I'm sure there are some experts out there going, absolutely not, Greta.
That's the
You're wrong. There's one way to do things.
I'll just do the quick shout out that is basically the disclaimer of every single person that comes on and does a stream. It's everybody says, okay, now there's probably a better way to do this, but this is just the way that I do it. Everybody says that to me at some point. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, Photoshop's been around for 30 years. There is so much going on under the hood. There are lots and lots of ways to do things. So yeah, we've got past the Photoshop disclaimer point. It's good.
Okay, good. I use masks in After Effects and I don't use them in Photoshop. I mean,
that's great.
Work that out. So what I'm going to start off doing is using the pen tool to do a clipping path of all the components that we'll be animating later. So I'm going to start off with this model's head, and doing a good clipping path is the absolute foundation, in my opinion, of Photoshop. A lot of people use the magic wand, they use other tools. I try to avoid those tools because the job just never is good enough, and I need this to look polished. Now today I'm going to be a little bit quicker, but if I was doing this for a client, I like it to be meticulous. There is absolutely no point in doing a half-baked job, because the second you do, you're just coming back and doing the work again.
Right.
Do it properly the first time, do it once. And what I'm doing right now is I am also using bezier curves. Apologies to all the French-speaking people out there. If you Google bezier curve, you'll start to see what that means. Photoshop works with pixels, But when you're using this tool, it'll still only read the pixels, but it's actually, correct me if I'm wrong here, Flynn, but it's actually kind of working through the pixels like a vector would. Not in the, okay, I'm rambling now. So if I hit Command Enter and copy and paste, I now have our first layer, which is our model's head, and that is perfect. I'm not in the business of retouching in terms of making people look quote unquote better. I'm doing that in talking marks.
Right.
So I tend to leave people as is. That being said, I do retouch my own photos. So now you know.
Now
Add
we
a bit
know.
of makeup, make the hair look a little bit better. Okay.
You're like getting ready to go out and you're like, I'll just edit that in post.
Yeah. I think Versace did a campaign with Lady Gaga a few years ago where she didn't wear any makeup in the photo shoot, and they did it all in post.
Right.
That got them a bit of press, and I thought, kind of makes sense because you have a lot of control when you drop something into a program like Photoshop. So going around again, going down here, this dress has transparent components to it. This fabric is sort of like a sheer organza, and that is going to come into play later. But we'll just get the basics going.
Extra little bit of complexity.
It'll give me something to think about in a moment. So originally I was going to do these earlier, but I thought for anyone who's really new to Photoshop, it's kind of nice to see and understand this process because it is, like I was saying before, if there's one thing you do when you start learning Photoshop, it's to practice your clipping paths. You cannot get good enough and you cannot get fast enough.
It's true.
No,
yeah, we love seeing this sort of stuff because often when you're thinking about planning to teach someone or show something, it's like, okay, well, everyone already knows all that stuff, so I'll just show them the end bit. But actually, there's so much benefit in showing the whole process because it's in that little nuance of, oh, what was that shortcut you did? Or, oh, it's interesting how fewer points she makes when she's using the pen tool that I make. You know, it's things like that we might not write down and plan to teach. But actually, when you watch someone else who's very experienced, you pick up on all those little things. And it's the little things.
I think so too. And Photoshop, I have a friend who I'm sort of lead teaching, and it sounds cliche, but is it the devil's in the detail? I don't know what the devil's doing in details, but it really is detail that helps you make a really lovely image in Photoshop. And when you get quite competent at it and you get other people's Photoshop files, you become a little bit evil. You're sort of like, oh, I wouldn't do it like that. Terrible. And no doubt I've sent one where someone's thought the same thing. So part of the reason why I chose this image is because our model is standing against a white background, and a white background is the easiest thing to retouch. If she was standing against something textured or with depth or perspective, we could still do it. But for the purpose of today, I want to show, I want to get into the animating process as opposed to just sitting in the world of Photoshop all morning. So we've got our three components here. When you see these black and white squares in the background, that's a transparent background. So I could export this image as a transparent file and you could dump it onto a website and all you'd see is what we see now, the model. You wouldn't see white or any color behind her. Love it, love a transparent file. Whew, live for transparent files. So there's about 48,000 ways we can do this, retouch this background. The first thing I'm going to do though is a bit of labeling. So let's call that our model's head.
You always get bonus points on Adobe Live for labeling your files. So.
Look, it is, even if you're doing something for yourself, a file that you're just popping on Instagram because you want to show people some of your work, label your files. You never know what's going to happen. You could have someone reach out to you and say, oh, we want to take this, we want to do this, we want it. and you'll thank yourself down the track. Always. So I'm going to call this background retouched because I'm about to retouch it. Sometimes I call these backgrounds clean because it means I've cleaned it up. This is my own language. I'm sure if I went to university, they'd tell me what I'm meant to be calling them. So I'm going to show you a few different ways. I use clone stamp tool. I know there are new tools. I am just an old school clone stamp tool person. Soz about it. So clone stamp is over here. Always check your opacity at the top and always check your opacity over here. Opacity is one of those things where you start working and you're like, why does it look like that? And then it dawns on you, your opacity is at 10, and that basically means that it's see-through. So I'm just going to get rid of all of the elements that we were just playing with. And I actually, now when I look at this image, I wear contact lenses, so I am the authority on this. You know my sight's 20/20. This side of the image is a little bit darker than this side.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So just a fraction. And the way you can really see these things is if you play with the brightness and contrast. You can start to see how you can already see where I've been. I don't know if that's showing up on your resolution. You can actually see where I've been using the clone stamp tool. So I'm going to go like this for a bit, but I'm going to show you two ways we can do this. Now, this is where some people would use masks. I don't. I'm going to create what I call a block. Again, that's not the official. There's no one. That's just what I call it.
I like it.
We're just going to quit. It's a worry, isn't it? It's actually okay to have your own language as long as you know, I think, as long as you know, says the person making up words, but as long as you know what your layers mean
Absolutely.
to you.
Oh, yeah.
That's fine. And it's not very often that a client will ask for original files. Sometimes they do. And within reason, you go, okay, have fun with this.
That's actually a question from chat was, do you send your source files to clients?
Look, to be honest, I do. It's if someone's going to take something and go to the trouble of working out how you've made it and no longer hire you, what can you do? Like there's, it's, and particularly if someone's, if the budget is healthy, sometimes it's just more trouble than it's worth, at least for me. Maybe it's my personality, but saying no might actually mean you don't get work with them in the future.
Right.
I try to be as flexible as possible with clients within reason. If someone's paying you hardly anything and they've been really difficult, which is always the way, the less the budget, the more difficult the client. I don't know why that is. I know it's this weird, what is that? It's the universe that we live in. It's the, anyway, but it happens. Then I might be a bit more hesitant. But for the most part, I find when I do it, it's fine. And especially if you're dealing with ad agencies or those sort of places, there's usually someone there who has a rough idea how the program works. Right. So it's okay.
You like to think so.
I like to think I know how these programs work, but heck. So I've just created what I call a block layer. That's going to block some of the cleaning or retouching that I'm about to do. And I'll show you exactly what I mean. When I get the clone stamp tool now and start to work here, it's blocking. So I'm not working over the part of the image that I want to keep. I'm also getting rid of some shadows. We can add those back in later.
Nice.
Okay, now this little section over here, I'm just going to show you a slightly different technique. I'm adding a new layer and I'm coming over to the, I want to say marquee tool. Bonus points for me. And I'm going to drop in a little shape like that. I'm going to use the eyedrop tool, which I love. I live for the eyedrop tool. And go for this little slightly darker section of the white background. I'm going to feather our marquee tool. So feathering is what it sounds like. It's making the edges all fuzzy. Photos are so fuzzy and they're so noisy and a little bit dirty.
Right.
It's really rare to get a crisp photo. I actually don't think they exist. So part of retouching is actually making the photo dirty and gritty and adding back in the kind of the texture that's actually in the original image. And I'm going to feather this at about 25 because that just feels good. That's not necessarily going to be correct. And I'm now filling it with the foreground color, which is the color I selected earlier, at 100% because I'm hardcore.
100%.
And that has actually worked quite nicely, if I do say so myself.
Nice.
I might bring it over a little bit. So you can see the feather there, just blocking our original image. And I can see a bit of a mistake. So I'm going to drop it down a bit as well.
It's a really cool solution. I really like that. That's great.
It is my favorite way to retouch solid backgrounds because you can start to add in Gaussian blur and noise and really because sometimes when you have, say, a sky and you think, oh yeah, the sky is blue, it's not. There's so much going on. So I can almost draw. I can actually see a bit of an error, but let's not. The line there is a bit too firm, but for the purpose of today, we'll keep moving.
Cool.
So now we kind of have the guts of our animation is sort of ready to go. And if I manually move this, I've now put the block underneath. So if I manually move this, this is sort of what we're going to see. She needs to be underneath. This is sort of what we're going to see in After Effects. So sometimes when I have an idea, I quickly, really roughly mock it up in Photoshop and I go, if it's just an idea for me, for my Instagram or Tumblr, I mock it up in After Effects and I go, is it worth it?
Right.
And if it doesn't look that good, I drop it.
Okay.
Because if
How often will you do that?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
I did it the other week. I had this real deep desire to animate Paris Hilton. I was just feeling I wanted to do some rotoscoping, which is where you trace live footage. So it looks like, I'll show you an example. So it looks like you're an animator, which I'm not in a. So I've traced footage here, which is what kind of makes it's still not many frames. I think it's only 6, but it makes it feel kind of fun. I wanted to do that to Paris Hilton. I just woke up one morning in a real Paris Hilton headspace. And I started
never
doing
happened to me before.
Oh, when it does, give me a call and I'll talk you through it. She's so great. You'll want to wear sparkles and cook lasagna and all sorts of stuff. But it just, I didn't feel as good as it felt in my head, so I dropped it. If you have clients, it happens. You've got other work to get done.
Do you keep the file or are you like, no, burn it?
Oh, you bet I've got a file called Paris Hilton. So what we can see here is just a little bit of our background showing through. Can you read that on the computer on your end? I'll just lift it up. I'm seeing a little bit. I don't want to see that. So we're going to cheat this image. We're going to drop the model's neck down a touch. Then we're going to drop tier 1 down a touch just to hide that. And then we're going to drop all 3 down a touch. And now
just overlapping them a little bit more.
Yeah, you never know. The one way to know is if I group all of these files, Command G. Oh, I have a habit of adding my own shortcuts in, but I think Command G is the universal shortcut for grouping, but don't quote me on that. If I go like this, you'll see how I've nudged it down just a fraction.
There we go. Yep.
Yeah, I'd say it's about 6 to 8 pixels. I think that's fine. If a client were to notice something like that, you just fix it up for them and apologize. And you do that by sort of retouching back in elements of the tier that is missing. Now, the one thing that I do want to do here is I know when we shuffle tier 2, I can see a bit of her arm there.
Right.
And that looks, it just doesn't look right. So rather than try to create, I don't want to move her arm because that's going to take us to a level of complexity that I don't think is going to add to this animation at all. And I don't even know what I'd do. So instead, I'm just going to remove it because on this side of the image, you can't really see it. So I'm going to create the same effect over here. So this is on tier 2 that I'm working on right now. And just to make that really clear, I'll get rid of everything else. And
I'll just
back with the...
mention
Oh,
that
yes, please.
we're just about 20 minutes from Q&A chat as well. So I know
Great.
there's 1 or 2 questions in there that I haven't asked because I'm very focused on what's happening now. And there's some great questions in there. Throw some more questions in. We're going to take a very short break in about 20 minutes and we'll answer some of those and any more that you throw in. So don't be afraid to throw in some questions. Okay.
We're going to have this into After Effects in about 3 minutes, I reckon. So if I was doing this for a client, I would tidy up all of these edges around here and just make it super duper neat.
And how would you tidy it up? What would you do there? Would you like fade it out? Would you come in with the eraser? Like what tool might you use?
I might do this, which is, this is homemade Photoshop if you ask me. I'll get my pen tool and I would either remove these components or just going to go around it like this, anywhere that I think it looks out of place, i.e. where it's darker, so it's a shadow.
Mm-hmm.
Fun fact, shadows are rarely pure black. Shadows can be colours. For example, right there, that's a shadow and it's sort of like a deep red.
Yep.
So never overestimate or underestimate, more to the point, what is or isn't a shadow. I'm going to go like that. I'm going to feather this maybe to about 6 or 7. Feathering and knowing how many pixels to do is not a exact science. You'll stuff it up and you'll get it right and wrong. Yeah. I'm going to desaturate this now. So image adjustments, hue saturation. Love this part of Photoshop. Oh, it's my life. I'm going to take quite a bit of the color out of that now and make it, I don't think I need to make it light. And then I'm going to add a bit of orangey back in. And I'm looking at that and I'm not super happy with that. We've removed a bit of the blue, but we've still got these darker components. So then I would just come in. Sometimes I use the eraser tool. Just really feels, it depends on what my mood is really. In this instance, I'm back on the clipping path because you have that really nice level of control. Command Enter, and now I'm going to feather this. I'm just going to give it 1 pixel of softness can make all the difference. Oh, I love a little feather.
Yeah, look at that. That's great.
Yeah, so, and it's starting to become tidy. So again, if this was a job for a client, I would refine this so much because if you do a quick version, you're just going to have to come in and fix it up later because once you get it into After Effects, you're going to start to see where it needs that finesse. Or worse, the client, and this happens a bit, if you're a bit nervous, you can always put watermarks in, but the client takes the file and they put it live before you've had time to go back into it. Even if you say very clearly in the email, if you're happy with this, I'll just go over it one more time.
Right.
No.
That'll just end up on the internet somewhere at some point, and you'll see it and go, no, that was the draft.
Exactly. So just do, unless you have a client who's really unsure about where they want an animation or something to go, then you do a quick job, send it to them, put a little watermark on it, say, hey, this is absolutely a draft. And then they don't have a choice. They can't post it. And then they can go, I love this. And then you go back in and make it nice. I have a friend who I did a little job for last Halloween who I thought she's going to post my draft. If you're watching, Tish, I'm so sorry. So I smashed draft across everything. I'm pretty sure she'll still be in bed. And it was just to sort of save something going live that I didn't want to. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to head into After Effects. I'm going to save this. Save your files all the time. It's a really good habit to get into. Here's After Effects. If you haven't seen it before, it's horrific. If you're used to it, it's not so bad. The first time I opened it, I was like, no thanks. And I'm going to go over to that PSD file, Photoshop file, over here. And I'm going to drag and drop it into... Ooh, and now it's asking me so many questions, and I have to think about it because I don't often do it like this. But I want a composition, and I want to retain the layer sizes, and I want the layers to be editable. Here it is. Now, if you're new to Photoshop, basically After Effects, basically what it has done is created a folder over here. And all those layers we've created are still happily existing. And it's also created a composition. So let's have a look at what a composition is. So this composition is Carolina Herrera, which is the name of the brand that we're editing. This isn't advertising. I just like to give credit. Nice. The current pixels are 3000 by 2000. So that's what I would call juicy pixels. Most videos you watch on on YouTube are 1920 by 1080. You'll hear funky film and television people talking about 4K. My boyfriend upgraded my Netflix account so it's at 4K. So I now bankroll high definition Netflix.
Thanks, boyfriend.
Thanks, boyfriend. This is not quite at 4K. I think 4K is 4K 4000 pixels? Yes. So we're going to call this 3K.
I love this. I love that you have this like technical sidebar that's like not on camera just to fact check everything. There could be nobody there. We have no idea. Just getting the nod.
He's a film and television post-production whiz. So every now and again I'm like,
we need him on every live stream. This is, we need to.
Right?
We need to
just a silent. It made me a cup of tea as well, honestly. He's got
a few
skills. I know, it's wild. The frame rate, so a lot of this I set to the default, I'm not going to lie. The frame rate is 25. The resolution at the moment is full, but we're going to talk about it. And the duration is 30 seconds. No thanks. We're going to make the duration 10 seconds. I rarely do stuff that goes for longer than a minute. I think that says a lot to my attention span. That's not true. I'm currently reading a book. Okay, so this composition right now is empty. So this little section down here is where all our layers are going to go. And right now it is not showing, or is that because I don't have it open? That was a lie. Here it is. And it's all as a group, and that group is a pre-comp, which actually I don't want at the moment. I'll talk about pre-comps in a moment. I just want everything to exist here. Thank you very much.
So these are all your layers that you created in Photoshop, and then they've all come down into this comp after one another.
That's exactly right. So we can still interact with them just how we were in Photoshop. Now, I actually don't often put Photoshop files into After Effects. I'm doing this today to show you the benefits of it. I tend to export everything as transparent PNGs, which is just how my brain works.
Yeah, so why is that? It's the
I have no idea. Yeah, I'm going to show you now.
That's a perfectly reasonable reason. It's totally fine if it's just, hey, that's the way I've been doing it.
I know, and I wanted to be more sophisticated today, but deep down, I'm not a sophisticated person. I even own Crocs, so please don't tell the fashion people that I work with about that. I know, they're so comfy, great for cooking. This is what a transparent PNG looks like. Onto the desktop, into here. Where are my folders? Oh, it doesn't matter too much. Let's go save. And so a transparent PNG presents itself like this. It's still within the composition of the original image. It just has no background. But you'll see why it's actually better to use Photoshop to use Photoshop in just a moment. So these are all our tiers, and I've still got our background here. With this kind of work, I actually like to refer back to the background quite a bit, just to go, what were the shadows doing? Or what else was happening in the image that I've erased? But I'm going to make the background, and I love this feature, I'm going to make it a guide layer. So you right click on it over here, and you click guide layer. And it gets this funky little hashtag situation happening. And that means when I export this file or if I pre-compose this, that guide layer is only visible when I'm looking at it. It's not actually there. So it's really handy. I was working with drawings the other day that were a solid color. They were red, and my background at the time was red, so I couldn't see them. So I added in a guide layer that was white so that it creates contrast. So it's basically a way of building little references for yourself within your file that you'll never accidentally export. I also use it when I have clients who have brand colors. It means that I can refer back to them and use the eyedrop tool on them, but they're never going to be in the final product.
Great.
So now we're kind of ready to animate. Did you want to do some questions now, and then we can animate?
That's a good idea.
After?
Let's do it because we've got loads of questions.
Okay.
So yeah, get prepared. So there was a great question, Elizabeth, that you asked a bit earlier, so I'm going to ask it now. Greta, do you prefer photo manipulation over hand drawing new animations over photos for your GIFs? Like, do you prefer the photo manipulation side of things or the hand drawing side of things?
Yeah, I do, because I'm not an illustrator per se. I'm really good at tracing. I don't know if that's a skill that people can be really good at, but I'm because it's pretty straightforward. I'm not a terrible illustrator, but I have never studied like what I call Simpsons type of animation. So I can do it to an extent, but there are people who are a lot better at it than me. So yeah, I definitely prefer photo manipulation or just traditional sort of editing and adding text and bringing things to life that way, as opposed to, I am going to show you, if we have time, a little bit of some drawing stuff that I do, but yeah, it's not really in my wheelhouse. So I can only do very entry level versions.
Cool. Thanks for that. It's another shorter question, but what's the longest time you've had to retouch an image or GIF?
It really depends on the client and how quickly they want something. Probably the longest retouching job I've probably ever done would be 5 to 6 hours. If you are ever doing work that takes that long, I highly, highly, highly recommend walking away from the computer often. And when you get back and you have fresh eyes, as they say, you'll see your mistakes. That animation I showed earlier of Beyonce, this is one I just did for myself. This wasn't I'm not working with Beyonce. I'm not that cool. To retouch, I mean, I'm pretty cool, Flynn.
You're pretty cool.
Not that cool.
I think chat thinks you're pretty cool. You've got a lot of
thanks, chat. This is going to make me feel I won't have a breakdown this afternoon if we can keep up the positive feedback. To retouch her, so the original photo was this.
Oh yes.
To retouch her neck, it took ages. I'm not a whiz with skin, and I didn't want to make it look super fake. I wanted it to still have the normal human texture of skin. So I reckon that was about 2 hours, getting all that hair to be feathered and soft. And then in terms of animation, let me show you one that took ages. This one took...
Oh, cool.
like a good day or two.
There's a lot going on here.
There's rigging, there's track mats, there's... I didn't do this illustration, obviously, because I am not of this level of talented, but it took so long because there is just so much happening. It was for a client, so I needed to keep refining it. Same with this one. Probably took a good part of a day.
I like that little guy.
Yeah, and they wanted to have this turn to have a bit of a 3D feel. So as you can see, I've just added a gentle fade, and the illustrator gave me a few sort of components. But yeah, not in my wheelhouse to do 3D, but I was pretty happy with how that result came across and came out.
So you were only given like this and then this, and then you've had to figure out how can I try to show that it's actually turning.
Yeah.
And your solution was that kind of halfway fade, so it kind of looks like it's quickly turning around, which is a great
that's
solution.
when I had a little cry because I thought I'd bitten off more than I could chew. But actually, the client was happy and I was happy. But yeah, not without some tears. But yeah, we got there in the end. Once I worked it out in my head, I find having a shower or going for a walk sort of unlocks the problem-solving component of animating. Once I worked it out, I was there. It happened quite quickly. But yeah, for a brief moment, I was like,
it's part of the creative process to break down and then build yourself back up, right?
Yeah, that's what they say.
That's what they say. So Chris was asking, this is a great question. What was your first paying client? You don't have to name them if you don't want, but yeah, like how did you get your first paid client? I think there's a lot of people that have posted GIFs to Tumblr that have never been paid for their memery and never taken it to that professional level. So yeah, I'm super interested in this myself.
My first client was, and I can show you, it was Tiffany & Co., which was quite,
okay.
Well, I don't understand irony because I'm a Alanis Morissette fan, but it was of jewelry, which was such a head start for me because I had so much experience retouching jewelry from my product development days. But as you can see, the animations, they wanted them to be quite subtle. So this is 2013. This is all done in Photoshop. So I have manually moved those layers with the rotation tool. They're very slight frames, but I'm actually still quite happy with the results I got. I mean, I could do a better job now with After Effects, but I think they still have like an elegance. Totally. I think they still work, which is why I've got them over on my site, which has a yellow background, which I checked with my cool graphic designer friend Jesse, and he said it was okay. But yeah, that was my very first job, and it was a bit intimidating, and it probably took a while. But yeah, I did have a bit of a head start having experience with jewelry and knowing how to retouch jewelry and how to do clipping paths of jewelry efficiently.
I think there's a really important takeaway for us from that in combining those skills that you have, like, and going into a different field, like, because a lot of people think, well, I want to move on to this different chapter in my creative career, but actually more often than not you find that you're actually building on the skills you have, even if you can't see the connection immediately.
Oh, absolutely. I love changing jobs. In my head, I'm writing a young adult novel like everybody else. Right. And I've got so many movies as well. It's a nightmare. But no, I'm a big believer in changing jobs. We live in 2020. If you are in the position to do it, go for it. Nothing bad can happen, and you can always revert back to what you know. I went freelance with like, I'd argue no clients, and I just managed to sort of, I haven't been on an overseas holiday in an extremely long time because you do have to be a bit more careful with your finances. But yeah, you just kind of get through and you work it out, and then it's a real way of life, freelancing. I really enjoy it. But I do miss going into an office and having colleagues and putting on decent clothes in the morning.
Gotta put on your
yeah,
Crocs.
I highly recommend. I know, get out of the Crocs. But I do, if you want to change jobs, oh my gosh, get amongst it. It's fine. It's fun, I think.
We just lost our tech expert. That's a shame, but that's okay. We got a lot of value out of him. We got a 2-for-1, which is great.
I know, I won't ask any, I won't say anything that I don't know the answer to now.
That's great. Maybe 1 or 2 more questions and we'll get back stuck into it. Sort of, you were talking about freelancing and working from home. How are you balancing work and life balance at home, which is a great question from Johanna.
In terms of like the current situation or in general?
You can answer that however you like. You could pick which one you want to. I guess it is an interesting time for people that have experience working from home. It's less of a shock, perhaps, than to everyone else who has been forced into it. But you can answer it about the current climate.
I've definitely had a head start just because I have been working from home for maybe 5 or 6 years. So I'm used to being sort of in my own space and popping out here and there. Obviously, I'm popping out of the house less at the moment. Uh, Darius and I used to live in a much bigger house that we rented a few suburbs over, excuse me, and he ran his business from the front room. So we were working in separate rooms. So we are used to working in the same space together, but he's now set up in my office, which sort of doubles as my wardrobe. So that's been a little bit tricky for me because I like to listen to music extremely loudly when I work, and I have not been doing that. And I also get through a lot of podcasts. But honestly, that's a pretty minor change, and I've been pretty lucky. I love working from home because I can put on a load of washing, cook something in the oven. I'm a bit, I don't know if spiritual's the right word, but I'm very connected to if I'm feeling tired and I think a lot of people who have to have creative solutions for work might relate to this. Some days you're just full of ideas and other days you're not. And so the benefit of working from home is you might wake up in the most foul mood and deadlines permitting, you can just go watch something on TV.
Yeah.
And you can start work at midday and you might suddenly feel really inspired at 6 p.m. I'm more of a morning person. So that's what I love about working from home. And to be honest, people in offices do that anyway. Like they have days where they're productive and days when they're not.
Right.
Just the benefit of working from home is your unproductive day can also involve takeaway food and a rom-com.
Yeah.
Rather than sitting at your desk and pretending that you're getting through stuff when you're not.
Right.
That being said, I find when I have deadlines, I'm much more productive.
Right.
So that rarely happens to me. Exactly. It's like, whoa, look, that rarely happens to me on a deadline. The other nice thing, about working from home is you've just kind of, it's nice to be able to set up your own space. Mine's not. You see those beautiful studios of people who have like art everywhere and gorgeous things and stuff. I'm not really that way inclined. I try to keep this room fairly clean, but it's pretty much the most boring room of the apartment. It's much more fun out there. I'd like to just keep it neutral.
It looks good from here. You have a lot of natural light coming through. You've got your cool plant that looks like it's thriving very well. It all looks good.
I love gardening. I've got a wardrobe. That's exciting. Yeah, so it's coming together. Yeah.
Awesome. One quick question. You said you listen to lots of podcasts. Do you have any podcast recommendations for us before we jump into part 2?
Oh my gosh, I have thousands. And Flynn, I'm 90% sure I'm about to get a knock on the front door. Am I allowed to go get that?
Sure.
Is that appropriate?
Yeah.
I will be very quick.
That's okay.
It's happening right now.
It's happening. Okay.
1 second. I'm so sorry. This is so unprofessional.
No, that's okay. No problem at all. So we will be back for part 2. We've got one more hour with Greta. Maybe let us know your favorite podcast in chat, just in case she's more than a couple of minutes. I'd love to know if you have any podcast recommendations as we go through. I'm going to bring up the schedule as well. So here we are at the moment, animated Gifs with Greta Larkins. We're about halfway through. She has to answer the door. And then tomorrow we're doing part 2 of branding and design with Joy Lee. And then at 11:30, we're doing, it's kind of a part 2. We're following on from, with Bill Hope, Impossible Isometric Animation with Bill. And look, Greta's back already, teleported, boom.
My level of professionalism is extreme. Okay, all I need now is a cute pet in the background. Let's jump into this.
Let's do it. All right, fading in, let's go.
So I am going to start. This animation is pretty much all about positions. So I am going to put in position points. So these are our layers. Again, the nice thing about Adobe products is that there are like through lines, there are crossovers for how they work and how they look. So After Effects has layers, Photoshop has layers, Illustrator, which I am terrible at, has layers. So these are my layers, and I want to give each one a position point. So when you drop down, toggle down, there's a correct word for that, on After Effects, you can see, and I'm going to bump into that by hitting the tilde key,
Oh, yep.
so you can really see it. That's the little wiggle one. These are the basics for what we can animate, and I'm just going to do a really quick, really erratic animation to illustrate what these all do. So right now I have set the, let's get the correct word for this, stopwatch. I have set the stopwatch point. So this animation will start in this position. It will start at this scale, which is 100%, and it'll start at this rotation point, which is 0. It hasn't rotated at all. One of the downsides of animating photos is this is the scale. If I scale this up, it will lose resolution. Photos. It is what it is. Hollywood wants us to think that it isn't like that. Hollywood is lying. If you're using vector files, which are shape layers, and I'll show you one really quickly. Let's make it chartreuse, the best color. That's not up for negotiation.
Is this the background of your website?
Almost.
Okay.
I haven't quite taken it to chartreuse levels yet. I just need to ease everyone in. Really is my favourite colour. This will scale infinitely. It will never lose resolution because it's a vector. I think that's the correct language. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Something I'm going to do straight away to help with the rendering of all of this. So I'm going to change our resolution to half. That is not the export resolution. That is what we're viewing. You can go down to a third and you can even go to a quarter. And then if I need to do any sort of work back in with the pen tool in After Effects, I will zoom in and go back to full resolution to make sure that I'm not making any mistakes.
I think that's a really great feature to show, because often we'll have people that think they're unable to use After Effects because if they're using an old computer or something like that. But yeah, just drop it. You can just drop it down and then it will render much, much, much faster as you're working. So it's a great tip to show.
And I don't work for any computer companies, but if you're ever in the financial position and to invest in a better computer, it increases. If you're getting paid $300 for a job and your computer means that it's taking much longer than it should, you're reducing your own hourly rate. So if you're in a position to invest in a better computer and therefore work faster and at a better hourly rate, it's benefiting you. And I can't stress that enough. We live in a capitalist world. You've got to do what you can to get by. Yeah, I wish that wasn't the case. Universal income. Okay, so let's do a really quick animation just for fun to give people an idea of how this program works. I've moved our little doodad, time stick person 3 seconds in. I'm terrible at learning the correct words for things. It drives people bonkers.
I love this. I cannot wait to hear your terminology for some of this stuff. It's so exciting.
The other day I called Tom Cruise the short actor, and I can say that because I'm 5'3", and I don't mean short in a negative sense. Short is great. I just couldn't remember his name. It's scary.
Whatever works. Okay. I'm sure whoever you were talking to knew exactly who you were talking about, though. So there we go. Communication, success.
That's right. I'm going to now move the position. There's about 48 ways you can do this. I've just done it within this little adjustable point. You can also type stuff in if you're a bloody genius and know where any of these numbers are going to lead you. Or, pardon me, I'm doing that. I need to be doing that over here at 3 seconds. Or you can hold Shift if you want to be in a straight line and just move it. If you have 48 of these layers happening, you might not want to use Shift. That might make you cry a bit because you keep selecting the wrong layer. So I've moved it up. I'm going to scale it down to 80%. And I'm going to rotate it once to the right. And then if I go back to the start and hit play, that quickly we'll have an animation. That's what's great about After Effects. You can get results instantly. Whether they're good or not is up for debate. Now, really brilliant, smart, intelligent people love to use the graph editor to give your keyframes ease and give things a sort of like starts off slow, lands fast, starts off fast, lands slow. I don't spend a lot of time in here because I don't want to say lazy, just want to say
You're efficient.
yeah. Someone has created a plugin that does it for me and I prefer it. And to date, it does really well. The plugin is Ease and Whiz. So plugins are kind of like apps for After Effects. And I love them. And when you get started, you'll start to explore and find so many. It does get to a point where you do want to buy them. I don't think I've spent more than $70 on one, but there are some that are like $400. I'm not quite in that lifestyle yet of you will really want to know that you're going to use it. I think Ease and Whiz is like, it's either free or it's under $30.
Yeah,
it is my life.
Oh, that's good.
I love Ease and Whiz.
So you know that was actually created by an Australian person called Ian Hay. And he was actually on Adobe Live 2 days ago. So he's a very good friend of ours.
Ian, I'm going to put you into my will. You're going to get one of these beautiful plants, hopefully in 70 years.
Amazing.
Maybe 80.
I'll tell him about it. He'll be excited.
Who knows what medicine we'll be doing in the future. All right. So how Ease and Whiz works, and heaven on earth. I'm just going to do the most dramatic one. So just a reminder, this is what our file looks like at the moment. Weird. I'm going to select all of these keyframes. You could do them individually, different rows. And I'm going to give them the easing value of Expo, which is the most hardcore one. It's like pow, pow. Apply. And everything turns red. And if you're really cool and groovy, you then can see the expression that's embedded in by the Ease and Whiz. So sometimes I do work with expressions, but I don't know them off the top of my head. I tend to have to go into tutorials for example, the other day I wanted numbers to count up 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Right.
I needed to look up the expression for that. I couldn't. I've done it before. I'm not retaining that kind of information.
Oh, absolutely.
So now
we all do that. We all need to do that.
The people that can remember that stuff, hats off to them. Okay. And now it has a much cooler energy. See how it's kind of like, isn't that nice? So that is the benefit of Ease and Whiz. And it's a little bit of no, it's not a cheat. It's a perfectly valid way to animate something. So that is the foundation, the basics of what we're about to do. But I might need scale, I don't need a rotation, so I'm getting rid of that. So we're doing it for the model's head in the second tier, starting at 0. Now there are lots of yummy shortcuts. You could hit P to get position up. You can hit S to get scale up. You can't hit O to get opacity up, so don't get too excited about those. And when I hit U, it opens and closes just where I have the little keyframes. When you drop down, you see everything. So I'm going to have U for all of these so I can really see what I'm working with at the moment. Apologies for that truck noise in the background. And I'm actually going to open up our background because I want to see everything. And just a reminder, full resolution, that block layer is hiding some ugly retouching. In case you're like, what was that about again, Greta? It's hiding where I just went heavy-handed with the clone stand tool. Okay, so I don't know what that noise is.
Is that truck eating a smaller truck?
I can't see it, which is making it even more alarming.
It's fine.
So I'm going to give these all a second for now. You can move all these points, so feel free to time something out however you want and then change it later. So first of all, the bottom tier, I'm going to move that down. So this column is vertical, this column is horizontal. I'm going to move that down like that. and I'm going to move this down like that. And I'm going to move her head down, and just to give it a little element of humour, we'll just have her eyes popping out. So the next thing I'm going to do is just gently scale up this first tier, just so it neatly covers the second one. There are ways that we could hide things behind with masks, but just for our time today, and just in case we want to visit one of the other images, how long have we got? 50 minutes to go, 45 minutes. That is a bit too much. Just going to give it a little bit more. This is 2%. So that is not going to register resolution-wise. And I think, did I just scale up her head? I did not want to do that. And 102%. Okay. But at the moment, this, I know, fit up to 200%. Well, really? I might
So you just have like a ton of fun moving this stuff around, right?
Yes, unless something's due in like half an hour.
Okay, all right.
And someone wants something quickly, and then I'm like, ah! But no, that very rarely happens. Yes, I do have a lot of fun. I've got to admit, it's the least fun part is when there's a lot of clipping paths,
right?
And they're fiddly. That's part of my selection process for when I'm doing work for myself, is trying to avoid that. Unless I'm really gung-ho on an idea, i.e. Beyonce's earrings.
Right.
And I obviously did individual clipping paths for all of these beads because we rigged them. And I might do a bit of rigging on this one actually, just so you can see how rigging works. I was so confident that the final result would be fun that I persevered. But yeah, for a client, absolutely, I'll do whatever they want. For myself, I'm trying to add in a bit of time management. So right now our animation looks like this, and it all comes down together, and it all comes down in an even way. So it's like, okay. So I'm going to add in, I'm going to make all of these sign. If you're a Lady Gaga fan, that word will have a lot of meaning for you. Chromatica, coming out tomorrow. Also not a sponsor. And now it'll have a bit more sort of gooiness and a bit more softness to it. Just feels that little bit more special.
And I'll just mention as well that Ease and Wiz, it is actually free, because some people were asking for free recommendations for plugins. It is actually free. You can donate for that one, but if you're a student or you don't have any money, you can grab it and you can play around with that Ease and Wiz right now. Exactly what we're doing.
It is. It's going to make you look like you are number one. So we have an animation, but it's not really telling a story. And I'm not an expert at this, but it's something that I try to work on every time I animate something. If this were to happen in real life, what would maybe happen? Okay, she might move with her head first. So I'm going to keep her head as the first keyframes. I'm going to move tier 2 over a touch and tier 3 over even further. And now they're going to stagger. So we instantly see a problem there. See how we can see the head appearing under a layer?
Mm-hmm.
So we can use masks to hide that. I'm actually not going to do that for the moment because I feel like the head's moving too fast, and I actually want that to be the first thing to move. See how it's over at 0.0, but the last thing to land. Yeah. Bit better. And this is what animating is. It's constantly playing with stuff until you like how it looks and the client likes how it looks. And I'm still not obsessed with this. It all feels a little bit fast. So I'm just moving what starts first, what ends first around. There's no, well, that's a problem. There's no sort of rhyme or reason to this. It's just what I like the look of.
Yeah.
Ooh, that feels nice. So part of the reason why I'm going with soft movements for this, and this is going to sound a bit like I'm a goose, but it's a soft outfit. It's
Right.
flowy and gentle and wavy and light, and it's kind of effortless and fun. So I don't want a big chunky. I want to sort of complement the image.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally get
So
that. It's like kind of
yeah,
it's floating down, and it's much soft, much
yeah,
soft.
it's
Hey,
much soft.
talk
Yeah,
for a
it's
living.
billowy.
Yeah,
So
billowing.
something that
Nice.
I love to do with, okay, well, first of all, let's pretend that this is the end of the animation. If I hit N on the keyboard, it jumps our little friend over here, work area. Here you go, you learn something new every day. And it's telling me that it's ending at around 3 seconds. So if I hit spacebar, it's now going to loop through like this. So if I were to post that to Instagram, that's how it would look. In my opinion, that looks not great. So first of all, Instagram reckons that its minimum video is 3 seconds. I disagree. Always aim for 4. You don't want to go to the trouble of creating this magical 3-second video and it rejects it because it's talking differently to your MP4 file. It
Right.
doesn't register that it's 3 seconds. It does happen. So I usually work between 4 and 6 seconds. So let's make this one at around 6 seconds. Back into our project, back into our composition, and going from 10 seconds to 6 seconds. Now, how do I make things loop? I love making things loop. Loop is life. So, to make things loop, it needs to end where it starts.
Right.
So I'm going to copy and paste our start keyframes and drop them towards the end. We're having a sticky Wacom moment, fixed. Now, let's see how this looks. And now you have a full loop.
Very cool.
So,
There was a question around what is your
Oh, yeah,
preferred way to
please.
loop in After Effects? Is this your preferred way to loop in
Yeah.
After Effects? Yeah. Loop is life.
Gives a loop is life, gives a lot of control. The only time I might use opacity with looping, i.e. fading things out and fading them back up, is if I'm dealing with snow or rain or anything really textured like that,
Right.
where I want it to beautifully loop over and over again, but I don't have a lot of control over the particles, basically, that After Effects generates. So something I just want to refine a little bit before we start really mucking with this is, and so taking it to, so this is the sort of place where I would take an animation like this. I would refine these situations, and I'm about to refine one now, but this is sort of where I'd go, or maybe I won't today, but basically what I would do, time permitting, is I would make sure that that's sitting behind
Right.
as it drops down, so it just looks more realistic. And I would do that with lots of layers and lots of masks and lots of patience. But for the purpose of today, just to show you a bit more about how I use After Effects, I won't do that. What I will do though is go back into our Photoshop file and show you the benefits of having something linked to Photoshop. So the client might come in and go, Greta, in real life, this dress is a lot more vibrant. Can you please make it more vibrant? Or in real life, this dress is pink. Or the tiers are different colored. Can you please fix this up for us? Absolutely. I'm going to play with the hue and saturation of the top tier now. So I'm just going to change its color. Now, for those of you playing at home, you're thinking, Greta, you can do this in After Effects. I can. I just want to show you how it works in Photoshop first.
Cool.
So that's now pink, and we'll make the middle tier yellow. Just a quick, personally, I like it. And then back into After Effects, and they're talking to each other. And we love that. It's heaven on earth. It makes me so happy. Those changes just, So easy. You look so cool when you do that in front of a client and they don't know about that feature. Ugh. But
Just charge a little bit more.
just charge a little bit more. Let's save it again and head back in to how we can do that as well. Again, because they're both Adobe products, they have similar features. Changing, really refining color is definitely better done in Photoshop, but for kind of blanket color effects, After Effects is fine. So in the effects and presets over on the right-hand side, I'm going to search for hue saturation. Really? And it comes under color correction, and I'm going to drag and drop it over onto the tier. Now this is where it's like, oh, I'm having so much fun with After Effects, and I mean that, I'm being sincere. Everything in here can also become a keyframe. So if I want this top tier to go through all the spectrum of the rainbow, I can have the first point there, go all the way over to the end, and make it go once through 360 degrees of colors. I can give that a sine ease, so it's just a little bit softer. And then when we hit play, that tier is changing colors throughout the whole animation, but it resets. And then we can add to that. Yeah, in the middle, which is 3 seconds, that's half of 6. Wow, 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 wow. I can also drop the saturation right down. Why not? And so now it's going to loop through colors and desaturate. I've got this at full resolution, but it's still... So this sort of stuff, though not always necessary, can be fun. And I can delete those keyframes because I really like the color that I created in the middle. And I think, oh, I like that. And I might not even keyframe that. I might just keep it that color. I can then copy and paste that effect. So coming under the layer, I can hit the effect, Command C, copy and paste like you've been doing your whole life, Command V. Now, this is where I've got myself into a trouble. My block layer, I haven't just selected the skirt. It's going to change the skin and a bit of the background as well.
Right.
So that's my own fault. That's where I might have to jump back into Photoshop and make a separate layer for our hands. Yes, you can use masks. Maybe I should use a mask now to show you how masks work. Come on, Greta, be brave. We'll do a quick mask.
Let's do a quick mask.
Zoom
That's awesome.
in.
And you mentioned before that you use masks in After Effects, but not in Photoshop.
Yeah, it's a crazy world we live in.
You're a rebel.
And
I love it.
I'm a rebel, and my skills are varied and random. So I'm going around her hands, this model's hands, because I don't want them to have this desaturated blue overlay. It gives away, I mean, there are a few giveaways in this image, let's not lie to ourselves, but it gives away that we're applying colors, and we want it to feel, clearly people know that this has gone through Photoshop and had effects, but I think these type of animations are a bit more fun when you try to make them feel as realistic as possible. So now the mask has appeared in our block layer. And right now the mask is, so this is cute. It's picked this soft pink color for me as the color. You might want to change that color. If you can't see it, we could make it blue, whatever tickles your fancy. And we're going to subtract the hand. Now, another problem, and this is good, we want these problems to come up, is that we're seeing the clean image. It's the only image we have underneath because we've subtracted that mask. So to be like getting a piece of paper, cutting a hole in it, whatever's underneath is what you see.
Right.
So that's where I might come back over into Photoshop and go, oh, heck. And this is why we always keep our original layer. We go, I need her hands. So I'm just going to really quickly grab, we'll just do it to 1. And I'm going to go Command C, Command V. Now I wonder if I save this, if it's going to pop in straight away as a new layer. I can't see it yet. Let's try to refresh it. Is it going to let me do that? Okay. The other way we can do this is the good old-fashioned PNG export.
PNG, tried and true.
Tried and true. Never lets me down. Famous last words. And we're going to grab it. We're going to grab the hand and we're just dragging and dropping it into After Effects. And when we put it here, we'll now see the hand looking a bit better. Now this mask isn't great. I could still see a bit of weird stuff happening with the blue outline of the dress. So we refine it. And as I keep harping on, but it's true, if this were for a client, we would refine it even more. So what I want to do now is just show you a little bit about rigging and parenting. And then we're just going to smash a whole lot of effects onto this file. And really make it hectic, because why not? So for now, that's how we would approach. I know there's an orange bit over there, but you've done all of this work and you go and have a cup of tea and you come back and you're like, what am I doing? And you can come into the effect controls up here and just hide the effects. So if you're like, whoa, I've gotten so carried away, I'm going to delete that mask. I don't need that hand. You're back at your original image in a flash. And that's the really nice thing about After Effects, is you've got room to make mistakes. If you're really going to push something though and you're feeling a bit nervous about it, just save the file and open a new one.
Right.
Like for some jobs, I might have 15 versions because the job is so detailed and so complex. And the client is well within their right and their budget to say, we like what you did on Monday. I date and save those files so I can just go back to Monday. Because if you're doing things that are just hurting your brain, and to be honest with you, sometimes you make something and you're not even really sure how you've made it. Maybe I shouldn't admit to that. Particularly in files like this, where you're just adding and layering and it's becoming so many different things. Date them and keep moving through it. It's fine. Just you'll thank yourself, especially when someone says, let's jump back. The other thing we could do is tidy this up and pop hand into that group. But you can always rename these things and relabel these things. So I'm going to show you parenting, because parenting files, not parenting in general, I don't know much about that, but parenting files is great. I'm deleting all of our keyframes, and I'm actually going to delete them all except for tier 2, and we'll bring that back to the start. So I'm going to get the model's head to parent to the top tier. So I do that by selecting the head and dragging pick whip. That's so hard to say. That's like an acting. Pick whip. Yeah, red leather, yellow leather. And I'm going to drag it so that it is parented to tier 1. The other way to do it is in here. And I'm going to parent tier 1 to tier 2. Now, tier 2, we need to move the anchor point. We do that by coming over to this anchor point tool, and we also make sure our little friend down here, blue box, toggle mask and shape path visibility, also known as blue box, is highlighted.
I like your words much better than the official words. Yeah,
I think so too. And just so you can see what we're doing, I found this tool by accident. Hello, life story. This little circle, solo. I'm so sorry I'm not a Star Wars person, otherwise I'd make a Han Solo joke, but I can't do that with authority. I'm going to make tier 2 solo. So it's the only thing I can see right now. I'm going to move our anchor point down to the base of the tier of the garment of the peplum. And now we're going to bring everything back. And we do that simply by unsoloing. Everything will appear. It's a bit like using the eyes, but rather than getting rid, it's like the inverse, I guess, rather than getting rid of everything. So that's handy. Now, whatever tier 2 does, the other tiers will do. So if I go R for rotation, they are parented, they are linked. So with that being said, I still need to move the anchor points for these in case I want to also give them their own movement.
Right.
This is what I did for the Beyonce earring one, but rather than moving, the movement made a bit more sense because it's the earring beads are all joined to each other. So the way that it moves, this is not going to tell such a good story, but I just want to show you the effect. So we're starting with our rotation point at 0. And then, sorry, my stomach is rumbling, if you can hear that. And I'm just moving all of these. So you see this. Now, there's all this ugliness happening behind here. So you're saying, okay, Greta, how would you fix that? So my really quick solution for that, and I'm going to do a really, really, really rough version of it, so please bear with me, is I would draw in a fake 3D. So I'm going to duplicate tier 2 and call it tier. Now, if I was, again, for a client, this would take quite a bit of time. For the purpose of today, I'm just going to do a pretty rough version. I'm going to use the warp tool because I am crazy. How did I find the warp tool? Command T. It lives in transform.
The warp tool is great.
I like it. And as I do this, I'm instantly not happy with this solution. So instead, I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to create a shape behind it. And I'm going to use my imagination within reason. And I'm going to think, what would this look like if this could really happen? And I'm going to drop in a solid color. I'm going to pick the darker shadow color. I don't think this, let's give it a feather. Let's give it 1. And a fill. Great. I'm going to add noise. Filter, noise, add noise, because nowhere in the real world does a solid color exist. Oh, I like that amount of noise. Maybe it's a bit too much. Let's go 2. Just to give you an idea of noise, noise is fantastic, good fun. So if you're doing something that's like retro, you need noise because cameras weren't as crisp as they are today. And the other thing I might do is give this a bit of, and I'm really, no one knows what this looks like. So these wonderful shapes I'm creating aren't right or wrong. Probably, if anything, wrong. I'm going to reduce the brightness a touch there. And for the purpose of today, am I happy with that? Not really. I might make it a little bit brighter, but it's not the end of the world.
It's a great solution.
Now, let's see if I merge these and save it. Big fingers crossed that we'll see that. Oh, look at that.
There we go.
So now when it moves, it's revealing something that might be there. So it looks like the garment's been sliced into like a cake.
It makes you think that everything is 3D just by adding that one little element.
Illusion. Yeah, pardon me, I just bumped the mic. Yeah, it gives that it's essentially an illusion. And you would do a better job of it. And if you were doing this for someone and you would look at the light that's forming in the room and you would go, where's the light source? Okay, this is actually quite a bright image. They've clearly got this model lit. So you don't need to create heaps of shadows. There's not a lot of contrast because she's front facing as well. So it's a good image to do this with because there's not a lot that you have to do. If anything, I would darken, oh, I've already merged that, merge with at your own peril. I might make that bit a bit darker. That feels right to me. Yeah, it's starting to feel like it could be happening on the day in the room.
Yeah.
There's so many ways you could do this and so many sort of solutions. So when I'm doing rotation loops, I never start with the first keyframe at 0. I always start with it in rotation already. So we're going, because this 1 second beat is -15, I'm going to make this one. The other thing is it doesn't need to go 15, 15, 15, 15, 15.
Right.
It feels better if they vary each time.
Is that because it can feel a little bit uniform, like it feels a little bit more natural to be slightly off beat or something?
Exactly. Unless you're doing a clock and ticking, like a grandfather clock. Why are they grandmother clocks? I think I Wikipedia'd that one day, but I can't remember the answer. If you're doing an old clock, it still has just a gentle variation in it, I would argue. Tell me I'm wrong, clockmakers. So...
Might have some clockmakers in chat. Let us know. Fact check.
Honestly, it's a real craft. It's really complex. Okay. We're taking out, we end where we start. And let's make that expo so it feels a little bit hectic.
And when you say let's make that expo, that's just using that plugin that we mentioned before.
That's using ease and whiz.
And you can just kind of select all these different versions and they all do slightly different things.
Yeah, they're all just gently different. So that was expo then. This is sign. This is the softest one. I use this on 99%. Just a little bit softer. I've obviously got this only moving. We can increase how many times it rotates. So I'm just duplicating these keyframes. They look a bit strange as they reset because of the parenting. They're waiting for the other keyframe to come into place to sort of stabilize them. And that's with more, basically, within the rotation. So that's what we've got right now, and I will keep it like that. I did say to change up the points, so I'm not a hypocrite. I will. Let's make that 16. Let's make that 15. Let's make that -16. Let's make that 25. Let's make that -10. I'm just picking these at random. This is not an amazing skill that I have. And then at the very end, these three must be the same as these three, or else we won't get the illusion of a loop. I'll just quickly show you what I mean. I've broken the loop now. So it's looking okay in the middle, and then when we get to the end, no loop. It has to snap back. You start where you end. And we now have a looping animation. So we only have a few minutes left. So I'm just going to dump some effects on top of this that absolutely I wouldn't do. Because I think the best animations make sense. And sometimes you can overwork things. So just having a look at at what we can do today. We've done the color change. Okay, yeah, so we could add a background in for this one. This image is perfect for adding a background because of that beautiful white frame. But I think you can all imagine how that'll look, so I might leave that for now. But, you could put, she's wearing a floral dress, so you could put a field behind her. As I was saying before, try to keep things, well, depending on your client and your aesthetic, try to keep things a little bit like they make sense. So I'm going to add a bit of a glitch into this and make it look like an old TV. This is a preset, but we're going to play with it a bit. It's really important if you do work in video or animation or social media content to be on top of trends. You might not like the trends. That's okay. That's not what trends are about. Trends are about knowing what's out there. So if a client says, oh, I want this to have like a TikTok pace and aesthetic. I want this to feel like it's from the 1960s. I want this to feel like it's grungy and from the 90s. I want this to feel whitey, bubbly and synthetic and futuristic. You need to have a bit of an understanding of what those things are. You don't need to be a fan of all of them. That's sort of how I work. I'm not the sort of person who you hire and I have a really distinct aesthetic. I'm the sort of person you hire and you go, can we make it look a bit like this? And I go, sure. Some artists have an amazing aesthetic that they've honed and worked on, so you hire them for their look and feel. I am not that clever or reliable in terms of sticking to one thing. So I'm going to pre-compose this whole video. And that basically means it's kind of like a funky After Effects version of a group. I've selected everything. I go pre-compose and I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it model and background. And it pops up here into my project. If you want, I can make a new folder called pre-comps so they know that it's a pre-comp. The other thing it does is you start to have tabs. Tabs. Mm-hmm. Always slow down a bit when the tabs start appearing because you don't want to be doing editing on a tab and that you regret it. So now we can edit absolutely everything in this image, and if I click into it, it's all still there. We haven't lost anything, but I can apply similar effects to the entire thing. So I might regret this one, but I can put in a paper, CC, paper, turn, corner. You're all laughing now. Corner. Turn.
While we're looking for that, just let chat know. Yeah, we've got about 10 minutes left, so if there are any final questions, get them in quick.
So I'm dumping that effect on top of the image. You can sort of see it start to come to life there. But to show you how it can be used, I think, elegantly. Oh, wow, I just opened up QuickTime. That was a thrill that I wasn't ready for. At the end of this, so this has all been done with After Effects. Pretty straightforward stuff. I've added drop shadows. My original pitch actually had more happening, but the client wanted to just sort of reduce it a bit. And the client actually is, for the most part, always right because it's their brand. They have an understanding. So we've got some logos coming through. I'll skip through. I've used the page turn effect right here, and it's to illustrate packaging and a sticker going onto packaging. Oh, yeah. So this is an example of where it actually worked well and didn't feel gimmicky, I think.
Yeah.
Please send feedback.
You've reversed it as well. So like, instead of a page turn, it's like the sticker going down. It's great.
Yeah, it's just gently coming on, and it helps to tell a story that this brand is using eco-friendly, packaging, all that sort of stuff. It's just adding to the overall messaging. Whereas what we're about to do won't add to anyone's message, just showing you the sort of things that we can do with this program. That's how page turn works. You're moving a point, and it can be quite a fun transition. So I would say if you're doing something for a younger clientele or a clientele that's not, doesn't take itself too seriously, this can be a really nice way. Hey, there's nothing wrong with taking yourself too seriously, by the way. But this could be a nice way to add in a sort of effect that feels a little bit special, and one that I quite like to play with when I'm a bit stuck or when I'm doing... So the fold position, like everything, has the little stopwatch, starts there, ends here. And then if I hit play, lovely.
Cool.
Now, that makes absolutely no sense in the larger picture of this story. So I'm going to take it off. And instead, I'm going to make this look like a TV. I love it. It's called Bad TV, and I'm obsessed with it. So you dump it on, and you instantly have an effect added that kind of is way too much. But I used it over here on this animation because this animation has a retro feel. The photo was actually already really pixelated. So this is an example of using old TV to the least. So the great thing about a lot of After Effects presets is it still lets you change things or get rid of things, which I love. So I might want to get rid of the wave warp. But see how everything else is still there?
Yeah,
And
that's
I
great.
might think that that saturation is too hardcore. So I love saturation. I've got to be so careful with it. I want to saturate everything. And then the Venetian blinds, might want them to be vertical or diagonal. So these are the sort of things where you can muck around and layer and play with After Effects. The client might jump in and go, we want this to be black and white. Why didn't you read the brief? So you can go either black and white or hue and saturation, and I can layer and drop black and white in, and then I can play with the black and white and make it like really punchy and high contrast. Again, why? We're actually detracting from the original image, but this is just to show you that you can just start to treat images. And I recommend playing with this sort of stuff with 6 seconds as opposed to with a 10-minute file, so you can really, build and layer. Right, let's just quickly drop an offset in, because offset is another trend that's going around. Yes, there are apps that do this sort of stuff, but apps are limited. Apps are in your phone. Apps might make you have watermarks. I know we have to pay for After Effects, but like, you want to learn how to do these things yourself, ideally, so you have a little bit more control. Dropping in an offset, not the rapper, though he is very talented, but actually offsetting the image. But what's really cute about this effect is, can you see how it has the previous image already there and ready to go? So resetting it to the start, adding in our little time friend, pressing U so we can see. So see how the page turn is still there, even though I've gotten rid of it? The timing's still there, just in case I have a moment where I'm like, ooh, the page turn, come back. And now we can just play with this offset. I'm just doing this how I feel. We'll give it a bit of, let's give it quad. Boom, it's reset. And you can play and play and play and refine. That can be, so I use that effect on this animation at the end because I could get it to loop, but I have audio on this and I couldn't get the audio to loop due to the nature of it. So it has an offset effect.
Oh, that's quite cool.
And you can
like
actually,
as a solution to that infinite loop, to have it kind of
and you can see that the final. Yeah, and the final frame actually isn't the first frame. The final frame still has a bit at the bottom at the top, but I know I can loop this in quick time, but I know you can sort of see what's happening anyway. And it feels right. It feels cohesive for the aesthetic of this image, and it feels like it's part of the same story.
Absolutely. And there's a question in chat. What trends are you paying attention to? You mentioned like TikTok, and like, are you trying to pay attention to like filters that are out there and like all sorts of stuff like that? Like what's shareable? Like what brands? Like, there's a question in there somewhere.
Yes. So I'm quite proud of myself. I'm going to give myself a pat on the back. I was onto TikTok when the teenagers were, because I try to think that I'm 15. I'm not. But I'm 15 at heart. But I'm a big believer in not overwhelming yourself with all of the social media platforms. I used to be on Twitter. I had to pull the plug. I just kind of got over it. Focus on what you're comfortable with. I follow TikTok on Instagram. And I actually like TikTok for the music trends rather than the aesthetic trends. But it's work out a way to follow something within your comfort zone. Because TikTok is so much about the users as opposed to, I'm not a social media influence. So I only need to have a rough understanding of how people are using it, because my clients at the moment aren't getting me to create images that would then go into TikTok. But while we're saying that, this picture's kind of great because it is the TikTok format. If I go new composition and I go 1080 by 1920, that's 916, which is your phone screen, 916. If I drop in our animation, this image actually works beautifully because she is tall and narrow. And I can play with it within that format. I can even drop in, instead, model and background. So we have the colored version and our original. So that's something to keep in mind, is knowing how to export for all of the social platforms. But yeah, in terms of trends, I just have websites that I go to. I try to be open-minded. I watch TV ads because there's so much motion graphics on TV ads. So when I'm feeling a bit sluggish in terms of inspiration, the other place that I love still, soz about it, is Snapchat. And I sound like such a goose saying that, but I love Snapchat because it's so gross. There are so many Easter eggs. I love it. I like to go into the section where they have promoted stories. And I like to see, oh my God, I believe I'm admitting this, but I feel like the Sun, like that horrible UK, I shouldn't say horrible, but pretty bad, problematic UK newspaper. And it's just about Love Island people. But the way they do their graphics within the 916 format, and the way they help you to know that the story is going to keep being told and that there's more content is really clever. That's something that is worth thinking about when you create animations. The user needs to know that there's more information to come. So the way that they do that on Instagram is that you have that bar across the top. There is more information to come. But the way we can do that really quickly here is you might want to give something a really soft scale up so that when people are watching this, it feels like the animation is moving forward.
Right.
Because it creates the illusion, when movement is always happening, it creates the illusion that the message is going to change. I have this other, I know we've only got 2 minutes, I have this other plugin called Text Box, which I love. And that can also do the same thing, where you can create movement around text with boxes and borders, and then those borders, let me do this as quick as I can. Those borders can keep expanding as well. So the audience it just feels like something is happening and coming.
I like it.
Yeah.
We are going to get kicked off if we don't say our polite goodbyes very
All right,
soon.
let's do
so I want
it.
to make sure we do that. I've had a great time with you. I'd love to have you back on Adobe Live. We've had so much fun. This is super cool. We've covered a lot of ground. I know there's lots of people in chat saying that they love your work, and you're very funny, and I agree. You're very funny. I love your references
Sometimes.
for all your labels for everything within After Effects and everything else. So thank you so much.
I've got to learn the real words.
It's awesome.
No,
don't do it.
It's been a pleasure.
It's awesome. And thank you so much to Jacky Winter. We'll be back next week with another Jacky Winter artist. Very exciting. And so, Greta, thank you so much. And we hope to have you on again sometime soon.
Thanks for watching and having me.
Okay. See you later. Bye, everyone.
Bye.